Great, thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Russ Biggs. I'm the Director of Technology at OpenAQ, and I'm going to be talking about open air quality data and tools and what OpenAQ does to help create and share more air quality data. So just to kind of frame things first, a bit about air quality and air pollution. Um, Main thing is air pollution is ubiquitous in the world right now. According to the WHO, 99% of us are breathing unhealthy air. Above the levels that the WHO recommends. The other thing is air pollution is deadly. Right now, on average, every human on Earth is losing 2 years of life. And it's the single deadliest environmental hazard that we all face right now. Unfortunately, from this too, air pollution doesn't harm us all equally. Some parts of the world, particularly in Southeast Asia, is the most affected. Folks there are losing up to 8 years of life just from air pollution. And at OpenAQ, what we see is that access to these data is essential to addressing this problem. We put out a report for the past 2 years, it's been every year, but we'll be going every 2 years. And in this report, we found that 36% of countries in the world do not monitor air quality at all. And this amounts to about 1 billion people. So when we look at sharing air quality data, if they're not monitoring, we can't even quantify this problem. And there's a lot of evidence right now that's showing that access to air quality data does lead to improvements in air quality. Countries that start sharing air quality data result in better air quality. So what we do at OpenAQ is we seek to provide this access to global air quality data in an open platform. We see this as a means to empower the world and empower change makers to solve this problem. So what we do is we aggregate and we harmonize publicly available data into a data platform to make this more accessible and pull it into one place so it's in one easy form. So looking at the type of data on OpenAQ, we primarily focus on what are called criteria pollutants. What a criteria pollutant is depends on individual countries, but in general, it's going to be PM 2.5, which is a particulate matter, so very small particulates that are 2.5 microns or smaller. This is really common in wildfire smoke, any other type of smoke. PM 10, which is particulate matter less than 10 microns. This is usually represented by dust from sand or something like that, very common in construction contexts. Sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, these are both very common from petrochemical, also just general industry create these. Carbon monoxide also coming from burning of fossil fuels, burning of kind of any sort of carbon-based thing. Black carbon, this is a particularly dangerous form of particulate matter that's actual particles of carbon, also considered a super pollutant and a climate, affects climate change. And then finally, ozone, and this would be tropospheric ozone, so ozone that's near us on the ground. And this comes as a byproduct from a lot of these outputs. All these have different effects on human health, affecting the lungs, cardiovascular system, and each have different problems. But these are the core pollutants that OpenAQ focuses on. So the key pieces of the type of data that we have is we focus just on ground-based monitoring. So these are monitoring stations that are on the ground, and instead of satellite, we don't do any satellite data, but satellite data is another way that you can quantify air quality, but it has some limitations, just as ground-based does. We only focus on what's called ambient, so we don't focus on indoor pollution. That's a whole separate piece. And some key pieces what we focus on that differentiate us from a lot of other platforms like this is we focus on high resolution data, meaning hourly measurements. So we like to go hourly or sub-hourly. You can often find other data that's rolled up to a daily average or a yearly average or a monthly average. We're focusing just on hourly data. And we focus just on concentration values. So in the original measured units, so units like parts per million, parts per billion, not something like an air quality index, which you might see on a lot of health apps. And we also focus on openly licensed data only. So in general, we focus on Creative Commons attribution licenses or those more liberal. That's not a hard and fast rule, but in general, that's kind of where we like to focus. So just some things about the numbers of what OpenAQ does. Right now, the data set on OpenAQ covers 135 countries worldwide. We have 20,000 monitor locations. Not all are active right now, but they come and go as it goes when aggregating data. And these are aggregated by us from across about 120 data providers. So we have scripts scraping these data from APIs, from web pages, from about 120 data sources. We just hit 2 billion measurements last week, actually, and we're ingesting about 1.5 million new air quality measurements every day. So again, looking at the types of instruments, when we look at ground-based instruments, we originally started and just worked with what are called reference grade monitors. You'll often see these in government and research contexts. These are very high cost machines, and they have a very high level of maintenance that's required to keep them up working and reporting data accurately. This one's what's called a BAM. It uses beta rays to accurately, very accurately count particulate matter. But these machines cost a lot and are quite inaccessible to a lot of people. More recently, we also started acquiring data from what we call air sensors. They're sometimes called low-cost sensors. These are much more consumer accessible. Right now, we emphasize sensors that have the option for users to open their data and share their data should they wish. The majority of this, the big change in this technology is the device in the bottom right here, which is called an optical particle counter. You can see how small this device is. It's another means and a new, much more affordable way, which you can buy one of these from like an electronics supplier for even as low as like $7 at bulk. And these are two examples of other consumer products you can buy, Air Gradient, which are available on the platform, and then an Erchino, which is actually an Italian company that we've just started ingesting. So I've already mentioned our global landscape report. This is a report we put out every year, and we count which countries are currently monitoring air quality and which countries share that data openly. And we have a couple criteria that we list on how sharing works. So we require that to get a full credit on this, that you have machine readable, that is not buried in a PDF or deep in a web page that is actually accessible to folks. I have the QR code, and I'll have links later that you can look up these reports. This is for the last report from 2024. So a new emphasis of OpenAQ is really trying to focus on critical geographies. So particularly in the global south, and particularly in areas that have no air quality monitoring. A big piece of this is we're working with the EPIC AQ Fund, which is out of the University of Chicago. They're funding a lot of projects and requiring that the data be openly shared with OpenAQ. And we're seeing great success with this, with lots of new projects across Ghana, Democratic Republic of Congo, Pakistan, Malawi, Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, and we're seeing data where there's never been monitoring data before. And this is really exciting new direction that we're going on. The other piece that we're working a lot on is doing allowing researchers that do projects, very small projects, maybe one device. They often don't have the means to develop an API to make it easy to share. And so we want to make that a bit easier, and we're building tools to allow research projects to upload data. And so the key theme here is really pushing the ability to get more data in these critical areas that have no data. If you saw before at the maps, you can kind of see there's huge gaps in certain parts of the world that have no monitoring. And as I mentioned in our report, up to 1 billion people have no air quality monitors. We don't even know the effects of air pollution on those communities. So we collect all this data, we're storing it, we're constantly working to update that data set. But the key piece here is the tools, and we want to make these data accessible to folks. The key piece of this is our API. So we have a resource-oriented JSON API. It does require an API key, but it is a free API key, and we do provide a very generous rate limit, I think, to allow open access to this platform. What we found though is the API is very much good for software engineers, software developers, but a lot of folks, even those that maybe have some software skills, this is still a bridge too far for them to be able to easily access data. So on top of this, we're building more tools that we want to help reach users more to get the access to these data. I'd say the easiest one, and the one that I encourage most folks to start with, is what we call the OpenAQ Explorer. This is a web application that we've developed that lets you explore the full data set of OpenAQ across all these data providers, and provides lots of filterability here. Here you can see the network across northern Italy. And you can filter based on the pollutant type, the type of sensor it is, even by the data provider. This provides a CSV download. This is a kind of limited amount of data just because of the nature of it being a web application. But it's a much easier way for folks to just get in and get data and start working. Also has the ability with an account that you can set up custom lists, so you can track certain ones, keep track of them in different groupings, so you can kind of favorite locations that you're interested in and keep track of them. Beyond this, we're also looking to, as an open source project, I didn't mention this, we are a fully open source platform. And for a long time, a lot of our software was kind of distributively built. We didn't have our own Python library. It was built by members of our community. Same with our R library. As this can sometimes go in open source, these fell out of maintenance and became outdated. So we've decided to bring these tools in because we want to make sure that we prioritize these tools as being something that we maintain and can keep up to date. So the first one is our Python SDK. So this is an in-house tool that we've built to help follow kind of best practices of how to work with the API, following some with Python. We provide an asynchronous and synchronous API. So with new changes in how async Python is going, this has this available to you. Also, we provide deserialized objects, so it's easier for folks. They don't have to parse the JSON and deal with it. It just comes out in a form for you. This package is definitely more focused around data engineering, but there's not really a lot of limitations. A lot of folks use it for data analysis as well. Next, we also have an R package, which is a quite recent development as of this year. This, similar to the Python package, we're providing this as a way for folks to access the API in a kind of standard way. We provide data frame outputs automatically. Also some easy convenience methods using the base plotting library, so people can make maps or charts really easily right out of the gate. Because of that, this package is definitely mostly focused around data analysis and exploration of the data set. And so these tools are kind of the key piece here that we're trying to do, getting closer and closer to reaching our users and making these data more accessible to those that need it. I'm done a little early, but I'll leave this slide up for a bit. If you're interested in seeing the links we have, this QR code will get you the links to all of our information. We are on GitHub. Like I said, all of our code is open source. Our Medium blog. We also have a Slack community, so it's a great place to ask questions, learn more about the platform, and all the tools and the relevant documentation is available at this links.openaq.org site, which is on the QR code. So, please feel free to scan that, and you can explore all these packages in a bit more detail. And at that, I'd be happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you so much for that. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about strategies that OpenAQ is used for connecting people to the data. So do you have any sort of outreach approaches or educational approaches so folks know the data is available and can use it?
Yes, that's definitely been a challenge. As I mentioned, the type of data we share, a challenge is that it's largely targeted at very scientific audience. So scientific literacy is kind of a barrier we have there. A program I didn't mention here is we have what's called the OpenAQ Ambassadors Program, which is like a 10-month fellowship program that we provide for middle career professionals that want to expand their knowledge in air quality data. So generally not folks that work primarily in air quality, but would like to upskill their career, particularly in low and middle income countries. And these folks then kind of go out and spread this knowledge a bit more. The attention there, unfortunately, is that often because we focus on low and middle income countries, there's less data. So our platform, that's just a gap in the space. But we are seeing that these people are going out, they're advocating, and that's what we want to see is more ground level advocacy from in country. As a US based nonprofit, we don't want to be telling anyone how to advocate in their local context. So we're currently on our fourth cohort of that. That's kind of our primary piece of that. We also do training for them on how to work with the data, things like that. We also do other separate trainings as well. But that's a big piece of, and we want to build in like a training of trainers model into that so that we can kind of expand that reach. And those cohorts right now are about 10 people, so across the 10 different countries.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon. I'm Giorgio from Italy. I'm wondering if this very, very interesting project may in the future converge towards an open standard like the Sense of Things API that has been published by the Open Geospatial Consortium, I think more or less 8 years ago. And just a curiosity, are you aware of the fact that the European Environmental Agency is already providing data about air quality through this Sense of Things API, thanks to an endpoint provided by the Fraunhofer Institute that publishes, make available hourly data at time series from the beginning of 2018 about air quality data collected from more or less 5,600 monitoring stations all over Europe.
Yeah, we do pull the data from the European Environmental Agency. So we use, I don't think we use the Sensor Things API per se, but we use some of the data products that the EEA provides. I would say the EU is a great example of a future we want to see where we can see more collaborative effort to share data. We generally would like to see a world where these data are just available and easy to use. In terms of the different data formats, there still exists some challenges on the types of things folks want and need, and the Sensor Things API provides certain, that formats provide certain advantages, but other things that something like OpenAQ does is provides roll-ups of data, so we provide some descriptive statistics on top of that. But yeah, the types of data products that the EEA is providing, I would say, is first class out there, and definitely a huge win. So pulling data from the EEA is much easier than we can get data from most of Europe, any EU or EEA member in one go, which is really great. Italy is a good example of complexity in this, though, in that right now, for example, if we were to look at the map, Emilia-Romagna, you'll notice is empty. For whatever reason, the region has not reported in 4 days to the EEA. And so there's still a delay there. So we do a lot of the work to also backfill that data to fill that in. So that data will come back online if we show it. You can actually see there's a whole network in Emilia-Romagna, but Italy, for example, works regionally. So the regions report up to the EEA. So you'll even see these kind of governance issues change. But still, EEA is a great platform and something we, definitely utilize a lot. So.